Okay, so we're gonna do a step-by-step on how to replace the screen in iPhone 8. This also works for iPhone SE and SE2, even SE3, but that's a little bit different. Okay, so let's start removing the bottom screws. It's called the pentalobe screws. And what I do here is create a little bit of separation between the LCD and the frame, the mid frame. And as soon as I get a little bit of an opening, I grab a little spudger tool and just open it along sides. And this is going to be a little bit easier to open since it's been fixed in the past. Um, so you might need to add a little bit of heat on yours. And there's all of the water seal adhesive that it's coming off. And then you start off by removing all 4 screws on the shield plate. And just an FYI, if you're doing this with the tools that they provide when you buy a cheap screen on eBay or Amazon, just take your time. Make sure you're not going too fast. In my video, I'm probably going to be going a little bit too fast, but slow down. The tools that I use are high quality tools, so they don't strip the screw. However, if you get the little the cheap ones that come with the screen that comes with the toolkit, then yes, I would suggest not going as fast as I am. Just take your time, pause the video, and yeah, just take your time. Alright, so I finally removed the screen. And then what I like to do is just remove any excess dirt that was left behind. Usually when you repair a phone, even if you put the best water seal on, sometimes it just doesn't seal up as good as it was when it was at factory. So you get a little bit of dust in there. And our goal is always to make them look as clean and as new as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and start removing all the old adhesive that's left behind. And the reason I'm doing this is because you'll see at the end when I put a new water seal on, if you leave all this behind, the new water seal is not going to stick properly. It's going to start coming off. It's not going to be good. And then you're going to risk the customer having water damage in the future. And always know that after you repair a phone, the water seal is never 100% perfect. Neither it is when you buy a brand new iPhone. You can still get water inside the phone. But when you repair it and you get a water adhesive seal, make sure to tell the customer that not to drop it in water, or try not to, because it's never perfect. And these phones are not waterproof. And so I'll go all around the frame, removing all the old adhesive. And here what I'm using is a microfiber towel. And on off camera, I have a little. I use a little bit of alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. And you gotta make sure that you get all along sides the edges here. And with alcohol, just clean all the excess goo. Even if you remove all of the adhesive off physically, there's still residue left behind. So you want to make sure all that's clean and gone. It's going to make the whole adhering process a lot better when you put the new seal on. And then I'd like to clean fingerprint smudges from previous repairs that were done to this phone. Now it's time to remove the proximity sensor front-facing camera from the previous screen. And note, this one has been fixed before, so I guess some screws might be missing. Or not. They're all there. When it comes to the iPhone 8, iPhone SE, well, the iPhone 7, iPhone 8, iPhone SE, SE2, and SE3, you have to be really careful around the home button area. If you damage the home button, then you lose Touch ID. You could replace the home button with another one, but you will never get Touch ID back. So you be really careful, especially when dealing with a customer's phone, or any phone actually. Just be really careful. Off screen, what I'm doing is I'm putting it on a hot plate for a couple of seconds, and making sure that it's hot to touch on the glass side before removing these, and then the adhesive just peels right off. And I use two little spudgers on this end to pry the connector off. And then off camera, once again, I do about 10-15 seconds on the hot plate, and just get it hot enough so where it's hot to touch. It makes the whole process. And then you go underneath the home button. Just be gentle and make sure that the whole button's coming off as a whole unit. You're not damaging it. In this step, this phone didn't have the data ported over from the previous screen. So usually what we do in this step is get all the information off the old screen, putting on the new screen. That way you're able to get True Tone. But that's not going to happen on this screen. So let's move on and start with the reassembly. And usually I could fast forward this whole part, but I'd rather leave it as is, simply because sometimes putting things back together might not be as simple as you think. Put the shield plates back on. The screws. And this whole process shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes. Even if you're being really careful and going at a slower rate than I am, it's still a pretty straightforward process. And also, just an FYI, if you're still using the iPhone 8 in 2022, more props to you. These phones are still great. These little phones are still awesome, and there should be service for at least 1 or 2 more updates. So I'm glad that the iPhone 8 is still around. And what I did there is I just make sure there's all the screws on the side of the frame are nice and tight, and if there's anything missing, just add another one to it. And they're making sure the home button's flush. Sometimes you need to add new adhesive to the bottom if the adhesive comes off during the disassembly process. Make sure the connections has a good connection. Now we're putting the shield plate back on, the home button shield. And this secures the home button to the shield plate, to the back plate. Make sure they're nice and tight, but not too tight because you might strip them. Okay, make sure it's flush again. And let's put the screen to the side. And then this is why it's important to clean off the entire frame with alcohol, because now it's going to make the entire process of putting this water seal pretty easy. You got to make sure it's sticking properly. And always make sure you put one of these at the end. We dislike it when we see phones that come from other places and they don't have this. It's such an inexpensive part of the whole process, but it's also a big part of the whole process. So make sure you put one back on there. All right, let's connect everything back together. All right, let's power on. Make sure the screen is working. Okay, let's put the shield plates, the final shield plates back on. So it's a little bit tricky to get on there. Okay, it's turning on. The last bit, the last shield plate back on. Okay. And now it's time to remove the adhesive cover. Alright, let's put it back together. Start from the top, angle it downwards, snap it in place, and then snap it all alongside the edges. There we go. Make sure there's no gaps. Let's put the last screws back in. Awesome, there you have it. At the very end, what I like to do in the situation is to always clean. So make sure that the phone's nice and clean at the end for the customer. Add a little bit of alcohol, clean the edges, clean the bottom. Make sure it's nice and shiny, so when they pick it up, it's a brand new phone. Alright, so I hope that helped. If you have any questions, just slow down the video and it's a step by step. So, alright, have fun.